Okay, class 9, we are starting with the second part of your chapter 5. I hope you have covered first part, tried solving problems as well. So in the second part, we starting with the basic structural organization of cell. Now, irrespective of which plant, animal or microorganism you are talking about, we will discuss a very general structure of cell. Now the cell can be divided into two parts, two main components, the non-living component and the living component. The living component of cell is known as protoplasm. If you remember, in the previous video also this term had come up, protoplasm, the living component of cell. So the non-living component is known as the cell wall. Now, living component is universal. Protoplasm has to be present in any cell, be it a plant, animal or any microorganism. But the non-living component or the cell wall is not present in all organisms. Cell wall is present only in plant cells and fungi. Even in plant cells and fungi, the nature of cell wall is different, and this we'll be doing later on when we study in detail the structure of cell wall. Now the protoplasm or the living component is divided into three structures. The plasma membrane, which covers the cell and is the place which demarcates from the outside of the cell and the inside of the cell. तो प्लाज्मा मेम्ब्रेन वो हिस्सा है आपके सेल का जहां से कोई भी चीज उसको उसके अंदर सेल के अंदर एंटर कर सकती है. ये बाउंड्री है सेल की. Inside the plasma membrane are two components, the cytoplasm and the nucleus. Now you have to remember these three components, plasma membrane, cytoplasm and nucleus, which are present in almost all cells. Cell wall is present only in plant cells and fungi, not in animal cells. Now we'll do the structure of plasma membrane in detail. Plasma membrane is also known as cell membrane, or another name we use is plasma lemma. Now this plasma membrane or cell membrane forms the outermost covering or the boundary of the cell. It is present in all cells, microorganisms including fungi, plants and animals, and it is made up of mainly two components. You can see in the diagram also these two components. You can see the rounds with tail hanging, and at the bottom also the rounds with tail moving upwards. So these tail to tail structures are lipids which are arranged in a parallel manner, and then in between there are these round structures which again are spread end to end, large structure in between the lipids. These are the proteins. So the plasma membrane is made up of these two main components, the lipids and the protein. Lipids and protein. Then you can also see few hair-like protrusions. These hair-like protrusions are carbohydrates. The function of carbohydrate is not included in your syllabus, but we'll be doing the function of lipids and proteins in next video. Now this plasma membrane is known as selectively permeable. Now permeability is a word which means that allows transport of substances across it, जो अपने आर पार चीजों को मूव करने की परमिशन दे देता है. That is known as permeable. Now there is one term permeable and the opposite of this is impermeable. Impermeable matlab it does not allows. Then another term is semi-permeable, which means it allows certain substances to pass through but not other substance. और कोई criteria होता है कि अगर ये क्राइटेरिया प्रेजेंट है तो वो सब्सटेंस उस मेम्ब्रेन के थ्रू चला जाएगा आर पार, और अगर वो क्राइटेरिया नहीं प्रेजेंट है तो वो नहीं जाएगा. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, आप अपने घर में वाइल मेकिंग टी यू यूज द सीव, चाय छन्नी आप यूज करते हैं. तो व्हेन यू पोर टी इनटू दैट, the fluid portion of the tea passes through into the cup or the glass, लेकिन जो पत्तियां हैं वो रुक जाती हैं. तो फिल्ट्रेशन का प्रिंसिपल ये होता है semi-permeability, which means some substances will pass through and some substances will not be passed through. So you know permeable, pass through, impermeable, not pass through, semi-permeable, partially pass through. Then we have this fourth term which we use for plasma membrane or cell membrane, is selectively permeable. So why is plasma membrane known as selectively permeable? This we'll be discussing again and again. I'll tell you in short right now also. Plasma membrane allows certain substances to pass through and some substances not to pass through. But which substances will be allowed, it selects, not on a single criteria but on multiple criteria. ऐसा नहीं है कि छोटा है तो उसको अलाउ कर देंगे, बड़ा है तो रोक देंगे. कुछ छोटी चीजें भी हैं जो अलाउड नहीं होती हैं और कुछ बड़ी चीजें भी हैं जो अलाउ हो जाती हैं. सेल देखता है कि what all it requires, उसको किस चीज की जरूरत है, वो सिर्फ उन्हीं चीजों को अंदर अलाउ करता है जिनकी उसको लगता है अब जरूरत नहीं है या जो उसके लिए नुकसानदेह हो सकती हैं, things which can be harmful for it. Those substances cell does not allows to pass through. So it picks up, it chooses substances that should be allowed to pass through and it rejects substances which should not be allowed to pass through, and that is why we call it selectively permeable, or a membrane which selects which substances it has to allow. Now the main functions of plasma membrane, कुछ तो हमने already structure में cover कर लिए हैं. Plasma membrane separates the contents of cell from outside environment. Boundary बनाता है, इसके बाहर एक्स्ट्रासेल्युलर हो गया और इसके अंदर इंट्रासेल्युलर. मतलब प्लाज्मा मेम्ब्रेन के बाहर का जो हिस्सा है दैट इज एक्स्ट्रासेल्युलर, प्लाज्मा मेम्ब्रेन के अंदर इंट्रासेल्युलर. इट रेगुलेट्स व्हाट एंटर्स एंड एग्जिट्स द सेल, hence we call it selectively permeable. Now this is very important. It protects the integrity of interior of cell by allowing only selected substances into the cell and keeping other substances out. Now imagine a situation in which a bacteria enters our body and it wants to destroy our cells. If the plasma membrane allows it to enter the cell just because it is very small, then we will not be able to protect our cell from bacterial destruction or diseases. So plasma membrane ensures that harmful substances like germs, dust particles or any other foreign material which can harm our cells should not be allowed to enter the cell, and substances which the cell requires, for example glucose is required for respiration, fats and proteins are required, they are allowed to enter the cell. Now we studied the lipid bilayer, the tail-to-tail lipid arrangement. This is semi-permeable. It allows only selected molecules to diffuse across the cell membrane. Now this is the most important topic of this part, movement across plasma membrane. Now basically the movement is divided into two groups, the passive transport and the active transport. Here I must stress that movement is one of the most important feature of plasma membrane that helps the cell to perform its various functions. जब तक वो चीजें अंदर नहीं लेगा या जो वेस्ट मटेरियल है उसको बाहर नहीं निकालेगा, तब तक वो लिविंग मटेरियल की तरह या लिविंग ऑर्गेनिज्म की तरह काम नहीं कर सकता. So this exchange of material is the basic reason why cell manages to stay living, manages to perform all functions that are characteristic of a living organism. So the two main types of transport are passive and active. Passive transport is a transport which does not require any expenditure of energy, जिसमें सेल को कोई भी एनर्जी खर्च नहीं करनी पड़ती है. Now passive transport will be doing are of two types, diffusion and osmosis. Then we have active transport where the cell has to spend some energy. A very simple example is if you are standing on the roof of your house and throwing water, you don't have to spend energy or force the water to move towards the ground. That will go on its own. But if you have water at the bottom, if you are standing in your garden and you want the water to move up to the roof, you will have to use a pump or some other force to make the water go against gravity. So the throwing of water from the roof is passive transport, and making the water move up from the garden is active transport. Then there are two more special types of transports, endocytosis and exocytosis. Now, as I said, this topic is very important. So in the next 4 videos, we'll be covering all of these transports one by one. That is passive transport in one video, osmosis in 2 videos, and then active transport including endo and exocytosis in 3rd and 4th videos. So stay tuned. Try to watch all these 4 videos in continuity and answer questions based on that.